So just a brief introduction. First of all, it's wonderful to see everybody. Some returning faces, some new faces. In general, in life, some faces I recognize, some new faces that I don't, and I'm sure that's with all of us. So every year we look forward to this very much. I do personally. But this year I think more than ever. I was just speaking to one of my colleagues, and I think we all feel the same way, that in many ways we're all trying to figure out how and what we're processing. I know that, as a rabbi, you sort of wish you kind of had your service to go to hear what your rabbi was going to say to help you process, what this Rosh Hashanah is going to look like. So lucky for me, I have 4 rabbis here to do that for me. But the reality is that every year, I think this idea of coming together is important, but this year, obviously, more than ever. I'll maybe wrap up with some of those comments. I just do want to mention that how appropriate it is that we're doing tonight in honor and in support of an organization called One Toronto. The name speaks for itself. That, for a long time you have lots of different places that are doing lots of different things, and at a certain point the community decided to go ahead and bring together all of those resources to help families in many different ways, whether it happens to be single mothers, whether it happens to be mental health, whether it happens to be paying the bills, whatever the different concerns are. We all know that living in Toronto is not easy, and there are lots of challenges, and so that there's a wonderful organization that says, come on guys, we're One Toronto, and we've got to come together to help. So there is a campaign that they're starting on the 29th and the 30th. You might have seen some of the advertisements. There's information about the wonderful organization. I urge people to take this to learn about that, both in terms of if people want to support, but equally, if not more important, if we know people that can be able to get assistance from the organization. Anything that's done in the community is not done to build an organization. It's to serve a purpose in the community. And so I think coming together today as One Toronto to prepare for the holidays in support of One Toronto is very special. So it's a big honor, really, always, for me to be able to have my dear friends here. The order of the evening will be Rabbi Sytner from the Village Shul, followed by Rabbi Taylor of Shaarei Shomayim. They're figuring out where their slots are now, as I'm saying them. Followed by Rabbi Karfunkel from the Forest Hill Jewish Center. Then Rabbi Spitz from Clanton Park, and if there's time left, I'll share a few words as well. Without further ado, it's a big honor to have Rabbi Sytner kick off this evening.
Good Shabbos. I'm joking. I feel like that's what you have to say when you get up here. First, I do want to apologize that I am running right afterwards, only because, not because I don't want to hear all my colleagues actually do, because I need more material for Rosh Hashanah, but I have to be somewhere right afterwards, actually in about 13 minutes. So I won't get too much overtime. Thank you, Rabbi Lipner and Shaarei Tefillah, and all of the awesome rabbis who are here tonight, and a warm welcome to everybody here. I find Rosh Hashanah to be one of the most confusing Yamim Tovim. On one hand, you've got this sort of dichotomy where it's like, who by fire, who by water, okay, none of us are going to make it, we're all going to die, sort of feeling. And then at the same time, you've got this other thing going on where it's like we dip the apple in the honey, and on one hand we say it's Yom Adin, Day of Judgment, and all of our lives are in balance, and the books of life and death are open, but at the same time, we have this feeling of we're eating, we're drinking, we're not fasting, we're not mourning, we're not crying. In fact, that would be inappropriate. It's a holiday, it's Yom Tif, we're celebrating. Scary, happy. I'm not really going to address that point so much, but combined with that is also this theme. What's the theme of Rosh Hashanah? On one hand, you would think we'd be talking about judgment or whatever. We're talking a lot about God is king, God is king, God is king. Hashem, you're the melech, you're the king, you're the melech, you're the melech. He doesn't know. We have to keep reminding him. So I want to tell you how, in case you're not feeling good about yourself, you're doing great, and you are the king. You're the king. You thought Elvis was good. You are the king. Like, that's what we're doing. What is that about? So I want to touch on a point that I think perhaps is the essence of Rosh Hashanah. It's somewhat of a new idea in my mind as I'm exploring it, but I feel that with every single Yom Tov, if you really want to know what the essence is, you go back to what happened on that day. You want to know what the work we need to do on Pesach? Go back what happened on that day. Let's talk about leaving Egypt. You want to know what to do on Shavuot? Okay, so let's talk about Kabbalat Torah. We received the Torah on that day, right? You look at each Yom Tov, and you go back to what happened on that day to get a sense of what we're supposed to be focusing on that day. If that's the method that we do to understand each holiday is to go back to the beginning, then let's get back to the beginning of Rosh Hashanah. What happened on that day? What's that? The world was created. So we actually say Hayom Harat Olam, right? Today is the birthday, the day of creation of the world. It's actually factually incorrect. Rosh Hashanah is not the day the world was created. Rosh Hashanah is 6 days after the world was created. The world began creation, I should say. On day 6 of Rosh Hashanah was Adam's creation. Adam is created on Rosh Hashanah. And what happens on that day is that God gives him a body. God gives him a soul. And what I'm going to touch on right now is the purpose of why man is created. He gives him a body and a soul. And God's purpose of creating man, you have to pause and ask yourself, why did God create man? God doesn't need anything. He doesn't need us. He's perfect without us. Why did he create man? God created man because God is the ultimate giver. God only wants to give us the ultimate pleasure he could possibly give us. So he creates Adam. And he says, Adam, I want to give you the greatest pleasure. What's the greatest pleasure God could give? It's not pizza, it's not ice cream, it's not a beautiful scenery, it's himself. The source of all pleasure, God himself, closeness to the source of all pleasure is the greatest pleasure God could give Adam. But he says, if I just give it to you, you're going to feel like a taker. And that wouldn't fulfill the purpose of me being a giver. So you're going to earn it. You have a body, you have a soul. The body wants to do body things. The soul wants to do soul things. I'm going to give you a commandment. Follow the commandment. Overcome the draws of your body and earn that closeness to the Almighty. Earn that closeness by becoming soulful and not following your body. And so that's exactly what he does. Adam is given a body, he's given a soul. God says, Adam, eat from whatever you want, not from that tree. Of course, what's his body saying? Come on, you got to try the tree. Yeah, who knows, that's got to be the best one of all of them, right? And his soul is going, yeah, but the Almighty God created the universe. What does he want from me? He wants me to follow and do what he told me to do, which is don't eat from that tree. So what happened? Was he just hungry? No. He made a very calculated decision, says the Ramchal, Ramosha Chaim Lutzato. He explains that Adam understood that although he could just listen to God right now, and that would be a great way to honor the Almighty and come close to the Almighty that way. But there'd be an even greater way. If he eats from that tree, he internalizes all evil. Remember, it's the tree of life, good and evil. If he eats from that tree, he internalizes evil. Now he's going to have all kinds of desires in him. It's going to be very, very confusing. It's going to be much harder to honor God and to follow what God says. Wouldn't that be a much greater way? Much greater kavod Shomayim, honor of heaven. If he eats from the tree first, makes it so much more difficult, and then does what God wants. And he said, that's what I'm going to do. Of course, it was a mistake. But the point is this. On Rosh Hashanah, Adam's given that body and soul. And on Rosh Hashanah, Adam makes a calculation. His calculation is, what does God want from me? He made a mistake. We'll all make mistakes. But what he was asking himself is, what does God want from me? What's the greatest way to come close to God? What's the greatest way to earn that? That was the calculation he made. On Rosh Hashanah, I think the same way Adam had the clarity, God is the king. My calculation of my choices in life, although I have these inner pulls, my calculation is, what does he want from me? On Rosh Hashanah, we're trying to get back to that. All year long we make choices, but we make mistakes. And if I would say to you, come on, you look, maybe some of you are even thinking this. You look at me, you're going, Rabbi, this is elementary. We already live life with this outlook of what does God want from me. And then we pause and go, do we? So how did we catch ourselves yelling at our wives or critical of our husbands or screaming at our children or cutting someone off driving? How did that happen exactly? Because in those moments, we forgot the clarity that Adam had, which is, what does God want from me? On Rosh Hashanah, we're trying to realign. We're trying to get back to the basics. God created me. He gave me a body. He gave me a soul. I am often pulled throughout the year, and I don't always make the right choices. And that'll be for Yom Kippur. I'll say my sorries then. But right now, what I'm trying to do is realign. What does God want from me? What kind of mother, father, husband does he want me to be? What kind of Jew does he want me to be? What does he want me to be doing in the morning? Really realigning. letting that become our North Star once again in life. And I got to tell you, with all the pleasures that life has to offer, there is nothing greater than having the pulls, the draw of our body, telling us to act in ways that we know are below our dignity, and yet overcoming that to do what we know the Almighty really wants from us. Yeah, it's hard to wake up in the morning. It's hard. What feels better? Waking up an hour early, coming to Shul, or sleeping in? You have that sandwich in the airport, you're so hungry. You know, it's maybe not so kosher. It's one of those half moon star K, half tablet from somewhere in Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? And you're like, I don't know if I should eat that. When you say, as hungry as I am, I'm just not going to because it's not kosher, tell me that's not the greatest feeling. You can't compare. I'll just conclude with one story. I believe in Rosh Hashanah what we're trying to do when we say, God, you're king, you're king, you're king. What we're saying is, we're trying to get clarity for ourselves, not for him. He doesn't need to hear it. We need to hear it. You are my North Star. You need to be my filter for all my decisions in life. As I go into my new year, yeah, I've got a lot of pulls to do a lot of things that I've done even this past year. But I want my decision making to be filtered through what does God want from me right now? In this moment and big picture. Last summer, I went hiking in an area called the 44 High Peaks. And they have these mountains, they're 4,000 feet tall, and I like the outdoors. So I decided I was going to do one of these hikes, about 10 miles round trip. And I get to the bottom of this hike, and I see the ranger there, and I said, anything I need to know? She said, well, do you have micro spikes? I said, what's micro spikes? She says, well, those spikes for the bottom of your shoes. I said, why would I need that? She goes, for the ice. I said, ice? It's like 80 degrees. She said, down here it is. Up there, there's ice and snow. I was like, oh, well, I'm a rabbi. I got this. And I just made my way up to the top. And I got to tell you that I read all about the views, what magnificent views this had. And after several hours of hiking and climbing, I get to a point where I'm at this clearing. And I'm at the top. And I'm looking out, I'm sitting among these trees, I'm looking out, I'm like, this is gorgeous, it's beautiful. After a few minutes of sitting there eating my lunch, enjoying this gorgeous view, several thousand feet in the air, a hiker comes from behind me. And he goes, boy, if you like this, wait till you get to the top. I said, what? And then I started reading up, there's information about it. There's something called the summit, and there's the false summit. False summit is like an area where there's clearing. It seems like, based where you're, it seems like you're at the top, but you're actually not. I pack my stuff up, I keep going another half hour, eventually I get to the top. And when I get to that point, it's totally flat, and I'm no longer just looking out, but I'm actually standing on the top of the mountain, looking around 360 degrees. I'm like, this is gorgeous. I can't believe when I was sitting there at the false summit, I thought that was beautiful. It pales in comparison to what I'm experiencing now. I believe this is all of us. We live our lives and we think, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. I did some good things this year. I'm doing all right. I got some areas to work on, but I'm doing okay. I believe wholeheartedly if we would push ourselves to become the people that we know we could be and we know the Almighty wants us to be, we'll begin to experience our lives on a much higher level, where life has much more of a magnificence to it, where we look back and go, I can't believe there was a time when I thought I was doing really great. Wow. Look at me now. It takes work. I urge you to take a few moments before Rosh Hashanah and to think deeply, what does the Almighty really want from me? Who could I really be? Yeah, I have a lot of Yetzer Hara. I have a lot of draws for a lot of things that I know in my heart of hearts I shouldn't be doing. I'll focus on that on Yom Kippur. Right now, who can I become? I want to wish you all a ksiva v'chasima tova. We should have a happy, healthy, sweet new year.
Rabbi Sytner, a beautiful way to kick off the evening. It's always wonderful to be here in Shaarei Tefillah, and I just want to express my gratitude to the Morad Asra, to Rabbi Lipner for putting together this amazing evening. And it's always very humbling to share a platform with such incredible rabbis from all over the city who do such wonderful work. A few years ago, a prominent Jewish charity in Elie was hosting their fundraising dinner, and they flew over Shimmy Whiteshandler, who is a very famous violinist in Israel. They flew him over especially for the event, especially for the occasion. He was billed as the main entertainment for the evening. Shimmy's friend picked him up from the airport in Elie after a long flight, and Shimmy placed 2 bags in the boot or the trunk of the car. They placed his, there were 2 bags. There was his suitcase bag and his violin case. They arrived at his friend's house. He took his suitcase, went into the house to get changed, and then they drove to the Herzog Winery, which is about an hour outside of Elie, for this event. But when they arrived, when they got to the venue, Shimmy was in for the shock of his life. Why? Because he opened the boot, the trunk of his car, and the violin wasn't there. The violin case was not there. He was devastated. What had happened? Shimmy's friend had driven from the airport to his house in his wife's car, and then from his house to the venue in his car. Because the thing is, in Israel, most families just have one car, so he didn't think to check that the case was in the right car. Didn't think that would be an issue. Anyway, there wasn't enough time for Shimmy to go back and get the violin. He was just embarrassed. He was so embarrassed. He flew, especially from Israel, just for this event. 500 people, his first event in North America, and it all went horribly wrong. Shimmy flew back to Israel. He was distraught. He was inconsolable. He was terribly upset. He thought that as the Jewish world is a small place, that word would spread and his good name would be permanently damaged. A year later, he was at home having dinner with his wife, and he received an international call on his cell. He answered it, and he couldn't believe it. It was the chairman of the charity, the chairman of that same organization, inviting him back to be the main entertainment at the upcoming dinner for the following year. Shimmy couldn't believe it. He jumped at the chance, and he went back to Elie, and he ended up giving the concert, the performance of his life. I share this story with you all this evening because Hashem, so to speak, flies us in from Shomayim. He flies us in from heaven into this world, and he gives us a unique talent. Okay, it might not be playing the violin, but Hashem gives us a unique talent, and he wants us, and all that he wants us to do is to play our instrument, is to use our talent to add to the world in a unique way. And each year, on the Yom Noraim, each year on the high holidays, it's as if we get another phone call from the chairman of the charity saying, okay, it didn't work out last year for whatever reason, but I know that you can play, and I know that you could do it, and I want to hear you. Hashem, our Creator, our Father in heaven, is telling us that he believes in us, and he's giving us another chance. All that he wants us to do is to play that instrument, and is to add our contribution to the world. Regarding this, the Torah, in fact, in this week's coming Sedra says, it's not concealed from you, it's not far away, rather, it is very close to you, and you can do it. But I would also say that this year, because of what's happened in Israel and all over the Jewish world, Hashem still wants us to play our instrument, but perhaps he might want us to play a slightly different tune. Perhaps he wants us to work a bit more on unity amongst our people and our connection to the land of Israel. I want to share with you another lesson, though, that we can see from this story of Shimmy Whiteshandler and the violin. Sometimes we need to be like the chairman of the charity who gave Shimmy another chance. He knew he could play. He understood the mistake that had happened, and he knew that Shimmy wouldn't let him down again. Hashem does the same with us. He understands human nature, and therefore we should do the same with other people. A few years back, I heard Rabbi Lord Sachs speak about this concept so beautifully. He noted that if Yehuda hadn't been given another chance after what he did with Tamar, then today we wouldn't exist as Jews. If David HaMelech, if King David hadn't been given another chance, after he sent Bathsheba's husband to the battlefield, then today we wouldn't have Sefer Tehillim, we wouldn't have the Book of Psalms. We too must learn to give other people another chance, just like the chairman of the charity, just as we ourselves would like also to be given another chance. So in conclusion, from the Shimmy Whitesander story and the violin, from our tradition, from this time of year, from the Rim Narayim, we learn these two critical lessons. Number one, all that Hashem wants us to do is to play our instruments. And number two, that we should encourage others to play theirs as well. Shana Tova to you all.
Yeah, Shekayach, that was beautiful. Thank you so much, Rabbi Lipner, for inviting me. You know, my father grew up in a small town, a place called Nirit Haza. And when he was young, there was a funeral in the town, and he went to the funeral and he was shocked. Because the whole town was there, and the rabbi got up and started off his eulogy with a halacha. There's a Jewish law, that at a funeral you're not allowed to over-exaggerate. Because then people are going to be like, come on, come on. And there was this particular man that died. He was the Scrooge of the neighborhood. He wasn't a particularly nice fellow. And the rabbi gets up there and actually says, I have nothing nice to say about this person. But perhaps someone here at the Shul can come up and speak. Well, everyone knew this guy. So everyone's looking around. I'm like, I'm not getting up there. This guy was a yo-yo. He was a jerk. He was a nobody. It's finally in the back, some guy raises his hand and says, I can speak. Everyone's looking at him. Who is this guy? He gets up there, he says, listen, I'm not from this town, I'm from the next town. And compared to his brother, my friends, Rosh Hashanah, you can only be compared to yourself. It's a scary thought. Because quite frankly, I look around my shul, and I'm better than most of the people, I'll be honest. It's not even close. You know, this year, my brother-in-law was in the house of Rabbi Eitan Feiner on a Shabbos afternoon, a great, illustrious rabbi, actually 1 year older than me and went to the same high school as me. A very illustrious rabbi, and he saw all the books in the house, wall-to-wall books, but my brother-in-law was smart, and he said, you know, he has to go to the bathroom. And it was near in the bedroom, and he has a bathroom in the bedroom. So, like, who goes in there except for the rabbi and the rebbitzin? And my brother-in-law got into the bathroom. Why was it so special? Because, look, everyone sees the books, but who sees the books in the rabbi's bathroom, right? So he went in, and he was shocked. Like, wall-to-wall books in this little bathroom, history of butterflies, and if you heard of Rabbi Feiner, he knows everything about nature and this and that. I was like, wow. I'm like, what's in my bathroom? So I go quickly to my bathroom in case anyone ever uses my personal. That would be really creepy, but if you did, and if any of you did, it'd be super creepy right now. So I go into my bathroom. I'm like, okay, what books do I have? And I'm looking at the books. And there's a book by Stephen Covey. You know who that is? Anthony Robbins. My favorite, Zig Ziglar. Peter Attia. And a book on Mickey Mantle. I'll give you that. Dawned on me, what do all these books have in common? I want to tell you, they're all books of inspiration. You know, Mike Tyson, the great rabbi, said that everyone has a game plan till they get punched in the face. Isn't that true about life? We read a book about inspiration, we have the strategy, then we get punched in the face. Kids had an earache, we were paying for an El Al flight, thought it was going to be 1,000, it's 3,000, and your money and this and that. Everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. I want to tell you about our greatest inspiration and how he lived his life. And with that, we can have a Rosh Hashanah game plan. A little bit more than inspiration. You know, when Avram Avinu was told to kill his son Yitzchak, he gets up there in the mountain. His whole legacy, his whole life, he's been preaching about animals, human sacrifice. He's been preaching about these things. This is going to be the son that's going to take it to the masses. Monotheism, amazing. And now he has to kill his son, and he's ready to do it. So can you imagine how holy Abram was at that moment? He's ready to do everything at this moment. He's ready to kill his son. Crazy to think the level of connection Avram had with Hashem as he picks up the knife and he makes the bracha to Shech Yitzchak. I mean, if I can battle that would be amazing. And at that moment, Hashem says, time out. He calls a quick 20. He says, you don't got to do it. And the story could end there. Now, we know that we use the shofar from the ram because Avram saw a ram in the thickets and he shechted the ram. Question is, God didn't tell him to bring an animal sacrifice then. He didn't tell him to bring a korban. Avram did it on his own. Why? So the rabbis explain, because if Avram would have walked back from Mount Moriah with just inspiration, it would have turned into nothing. Because we know what inspiration is. It's nice. It's like all the books lined up in my bathroom. I read them, I leave the bathroom, I'm ready to take on the world. And then one kid's complaining that another kid hit him, and then all the book goes in the garbage. Avram said, you know what? I got to do something. It might not be the biggest thing, but I have to do one small thing. And when Avram did that one small thing, he changed the projection of the Jewish people forever, and I'll explain why. You know, there was a Chabad emissary over 100 years ago that was caught teaching Torah, and he was thrown into jail. And in this particular jail, he was in jail with a bunch of people that were thuggish, and he was a little bit nervous. Anyways, they take out cards and they start playing cards, and he's freaking out. He said, "Don't you know the guard said you can't play cards in the jail?" So they quickly come in. The guards come in. They hear shuffling of the deck. They come in, and he said, "Where are the cards? Where are the cards? You're all in trouble." Looks around, can't find the deck of cards. So the guard leaves. They laugh and they go back playing cards. He's like, this is pretty crazy and reckless. Start playing cards again. 2 minutes later, the warden runs in. Not just the guard, the warden. He says, you're playing cards. Looks around, no cards. They go back to playing cards. This time the rabbi's freaking out. What is going on here? Sure enough, 2 minutes go by. They're playing cards. 3 guards and the warden come in. They say, we're not leaving till we find the cards, and all you're going to be in solitary confinement. The rabbi's like I've got to say Tehillim already. They go around, toilet, bed, rip up the mattresses. They're looking, no cards. They give up and they leave. Finally, the rabbi's like, listen, guys, what's the deal? What do you do with the cards? You guys are magicians. He says, no. He said, we're all pickpockets. He said, so? He said, when the guards came in the room, we knew the only place they wouldn't check was their own pocket. So he came in, and we put the cards in their pocket. My friends, all we have to do is look at our own pockets. Rosh Hashanah is coming. We can't compare it to anyone else but ourselves. But if all we do is have inspiration, if all we do is come out and say, kumbaya, it's great, you're going to get punched in the face the day after Rosh Hashanah, and boom, it all disappears. A commitment to one small thing, and that will make all the difference. You know, my wife was telling me she was listening to a man who was telling over a story about Israeli radio that took place just a couple of weeks ago, and a farmer called up this radio station. And the farmer said, you know, do you remember me when I called a couple of months ago? He tells the radio personality, he says, yes, I do remember you. He says, what's been going on? He says, you should know I'm calling you now with tears in my eyes, and I called you then with tears in my eyes. When I called you a couple of months ago, I told you that I had a field and all of my people are on the front lines and my whole farm is going to pot. Not the Canadian version of pot. I gave my phone number to you. Everyone came out. I'm looking outside of my window right now, 6 months later. There's hundreds of people volunteering working on my farm. Mi ka'amcha Yisrael. Who are like the Jewish people? If all we do is talk and all we do is get inspiration, but we don't open the door and do something, do acts of kindness. And October 7th till now, the Jewish people, the grassroots, not the big 4 or 5 organizations, the grassroots of all the stuff's going on. Every guy and his brother's boots and this and that, everything's happening. Why? Because it's not enough to be inspired. It has to translate into action. My friends, the Medrash says that Avram Avinu's ram, the shofar that he had on that day, the Medrash says was used again by Moshe Rabbeinu at Mount Sinai. And it will be used again, God willing, when Mashiach blows the shofar. It all comes from the decision that Avram Avinu said, inspiration's not enough. I got to do something about it. Small, but great. And with that, we should all have Hashana Tova U'Mesuka.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to once again join this beautiful event. It's officially my third year. As I said last year, if you invite me again for the third year, then it's a chazaka. And God willing, looking forward to doing this again next year in Yerushalayim together. Special thank you to my chaver, to my mentor, Rav Ephraim Goldberg, for sharing these insights with me. I'm specifically not going to speak about Israel. There'll be plenty of time over the Chagim, over Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Shabbat Shuvah to speak about Israel. But of course, Achenu B'nai Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael are always on our mind. And in that vein, before I share a few words, with your permission, I'd just like to say one parak of Tehillim together with you. Kuf Lamed. Shir Amalos Mima Makim Krasicha Adonai Adonai Shema Ve'Koli Tiena Aznacha Kashuvos L'Kol Tachanunai Im Avonos Tishmor Ya Adonai Miyamod Kimcha Slicha Leman Tivarei Kivisi Adonai Kivisa Nafshi V'Lidvara Hochalti Nafshi L'Adonai Mishomrim Laboker Shomerim Laboker Yachel Yisrael El Adonai Kim Adonai Yachesed V'Arbeim Ofidus V'hu Yivtes Yisrael Mikol Avonosav Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Nusnim B'Tzara V'Shivya Hamdim B'Yam Uv'Em B'Yabasha Hamakom Rachem Aleihem V'Yotzei Mitzara L'Vercha Me'Fela L'Ra Mishibud L'Gula Hashta B'Agala V'Zman Kariv V'Nomar Amen. There's a famous rabbi, could have been a rabbi, could have been a writer, could have been anybody. It happens to be a famous writer who once said that everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves. Now, the truth is that it sounds very deep. Everybody wants to change the world, nobody wants to change themselves, but I would disagree. I don't think it's true. First of all, I don't think everybody wants to change the world. But more importantly for us tonight, I do think that everybody wants to change, and I think everybody wants to change for the better. I think whether we realize it or not, every single person here does want to change and want to change for the better. We want to become the people that we're capable of becoming. The issue is that we just don't know how. And that's because, as Rav Yehuda Halevi famously writes, we often feel trapped. And we feel trapped in one of two ways. We either feel trapped in our own self-imposed limitations, or we feel trapped by the habits, by the behaviors that we think we cannot change. We either have limitations that we've imposed upon ourselves and nobody else has imposed upon us, or we've just gotten into the routine, into habits, and we feel like either way, there's no way that we can ever change. And we feel this about everything in life. Whether we're going to be late or we're going to be on time. I'm always late. I'm always on time. We know those people. They're always late and they're always on time. One of the two. You rarely have people that are sometimes late and sometimes on time. And you know who you are. Usually it's one spouse one way and one spouse the other way. We know that we have a tendency to either get angry or keep our cool. We know that usually we're going to eat healthy or usually we're going to let ourselves go. Usually we're going to be distracted by technology, or usually we're going to disconnect. We're usually going to go to minyan, we're usually going to daven at home, or we're just usually not going to daven at all. We're usually going to make a bracha before or after we do something or eat something. We're going to have kavanah sometimes. No, usually we will or won't, and sometimes or usually we won't make a bracha at all. And that's because all of these things seemingly have been programmed, not pre-programmed, but programmed into our daily lives. Some of them are self-imposed limitations, but most of them are habits and behaviors that we've sort of just trained ourselves. And really it's come to the point where most of us are on autopilot. And as such, many of us feel imprisoned. We feel trapped by the habits that we formed that have really become who we are, and the momentum with which those habits really carry us forward. And that's what Rosh Hashanah is for. the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah tells us something fascinating. Besides for being the day that the world was created according to one opinion, or that man was created according to one opinion, Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara tells us, is the anniversary of the day that Yosef was released from prison. And if you don't believe this, you'll be surprised to know that you actually say this in Tehillim. We know that one of the psukim that we say many times over Rosh Hashanah is Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kesel liyom chagenu. We blow the shofar b'kesel liyom chagenu kichok Yisrael hu mishpat le'elohei Yaakov. That's what we say. That's in Tehillim 81, Pei Aleph. Does anybody know what the next pasuk is after we say Tiku b'chodesh shofar? What's the next pasuk? Eidus b'hosef samo. Eidus b'hosef, it's spelled weirdly, but it means Yosef. There's a clear connection between blowing the shofar and Yosef HaTzadik in Mitzrayim. And according to Chazal, Yosef was specifically released on Rosh Hashanah. And it's not a coincidence, but it reflects the power and potential that each of us have to be released, to become free on this day as well. The important question is, how do we do so? How do we break our habits? How do we change for the better? It could be a very long conversation, but just to simplify it and to oversimplify it, it's really two steps. Step number one is to figure out the things that we want to change, or sometimes the things that we don't want to change, but things that we know we have to change. There are certain things that we want to change. We want to eat healthier. We want to learn a little more Torah. We want to enjoy more time with our family. And then there are things that we may not want to do, but know that we have to do. So step number one is to figure out what those things are that we want to change or know we have to change. And step number two is to make a plan to do so and figure out how to implement that plan. Simple? No. Impossible? No. Doable? Definitely. Let me tell you a story that I heard numerous years ago, and I've actually told it over before, I believe, in Shul, but it continues to inspire me every single time I hear it and retell it, and especially this time of year. There's a man who I happen to know. I know his family, but I'll just keep the first name for now. There's a man named Daniel who lives in Teaneck, New Jersey. Daniel, again, this is a few years ago, and I don't want to check up on him because then it'll ruin my story, but I'm assuming he's only the same or better. Daniel, a few years ago, was spiritually on fire. When you talk to him, you felt like you were talking, you know, those people that like come off the boat, like right out of Shana Bet, second year studying in Israel. They're literally like on fire. And when you talk to him, he was more like that than a middle-aged father who was very far removed from yeshiva. And just talking to him, you could feel his passion, his excitement for Torah, his excitement for Judaism, his excitement for halacha, his excitement for Torah learning. It was contagious. You could feel it. And he wakes up early every single morning. He goes to a Daf Yomi Shir. He goes to Minyan. He listens to inspiring classes on the way to work, on the way home from work. He organized Emunah Chabura to talk about having Emunah, trusting in God. He organized one in his community. So the question is, how did this happen? Was he always like this? And the answer is no. So what happened? So he shared the following. He had been disengaged. He went to yeshiva growing up. He went to yeshiva in Israel. He went to college, and he became disengaged. And he was living life, and he was working hard. He was paying the bills. He was doing the best he could to be a good husband, to be a good father, to be a good person, but he had become disconnected from anything spiritual. And his life was literally the grind of family life. He was taking care of his family, he was working, he was coaching basketball in Toronto, he was sending his kids and driving his kids to hockey 4 nights a week. And he had much professional ambition, and it wasn't his fault. He needed to make money in order to survive and to live. But he had drifted so far to the point that he was no longer davening at all. Forget about going to Minyan, he wasn't davening at all. And everything changed on August 1st, 2012. I happen to have been there as well, and I remember as well. Was anybody at the Siyum HaShas on August 1st, 2012 in MetLife Stadium? Sam, you were there? You were like 4 years old at the time. August 1st, 2012. I was there August 1st. That's such a big shot to go August 1st, 2012. I was also there 7.5 years later. If you do the math, 7.5 years after August 1st, 2012 is actually January 2020. Totally different experience, amazing experience. Both of them had 90,000 to 100,000 people. There's nothing like it. The one in January was quite cold, and nobody could have ever envisioned that having 100,000 people together in January 2020 would be the last time for a very long time. And he was there with 90,000 other people, myself and Rabbi Taylor included. And he wasn't there because he had learned Daf Yomi. He was there out of pride for his grandfathers, some of which weren't necessarily even alive, but his grandfathers had learned the Daf Yomi numerous times. And that night, I remember, you may remember, there were numerous speeches in Yiddish, in Hebrew, and in English. And deep into the night, Rabbi Yisachar Friend took the podium. Rabbi Yisachar Friend gives a weekly shiur on Thursday night in Baltimore, Maryland. And especially when he speaks, he always gives a tshuva drasha. He just has this way where he says it the way it is, and it always makes an impact. So he takes the podium and he delivers an impassioned 22-minute speech that electrified the stadium in a way that the Jets and Giants were never able to do. And he spoke about the bas kol, the heavenly voice, that asks each and every person in the stadium, and each and every one of us, why aren't we doing more to learn Torah, to do mitzvos? Why aren't we doing more to strengthen our relationship with Hashem? And Rabbi Friend was adamant in suggesting that in response to this bas kol, in response to this heavenly voice, which is asking us this question whether we want to admit it or not, he says every one of us must leave here with a plan. And he challenged all 90,000 attendees, men, women, children, to do whatever they could. Learn a daf Gemara every day. And if you can't do that, then learn an Amud a day. And if you can't do that, then learn a Mishnah a day. And if you can't do that, then learn Mishnah Berurah. Learn some Torah and do some chesed. And make sure that you daven. And then he yelled out, whatever it is, every one of us must leave here with a plan. Do this, or do that, or do this, or do that. And then he yells out, but whatever you do, do something every single day. Whatever you do, I don't know if you remember that. I remember something a day. That's what Rabbi Friend said. And those words, something a day, pierced Daniel's neshama, pierced Daniel's soul, and touched him in a way that nothing else had ever touched him before. Something a day. He kept hearing Rabbi Friend's voice. Something a day. Surely, he says to himself, I'm capable of doing something a day. The next day, he started learning Daf Yomi. But a few days later, he missed it because it was early. So he says, I can't do this. I want to do something a day, but I can't just expect myself to do something a day. The only way I'll be able to do something a day is if I have a plan. It can't just be a good intention. I look around, there are people from my shul who have a chavrusa. That's how they do it, because they know that they want to learn, but if they don't have a chavrusa, if they don't have somebody who's going to be there every single morning at 6 a.m., then they're not going to be able to do it, even though they want to. They need to have a plan. They need to have somebody or something that they're accountable to or for. And so he joined the Daf Yomi shiur at 5:30 a.m. every single morning. He started going to the Daf Yomi shiur, and he said, this is ridiculous. I'm going to a 5:30 a.m. Daf Yomi shiur, and I'm not even davening shacharis, let alone with a minyan. So he said, once I'm going to the 5:30 a.m. Daf Yomi shiur, I might as well stay for shacharis. Then he realizes a few months later, this is silly. I go every morning to a 5:30 a.m. shiur, I stay for shacharis, and I don't even daven mincha marav. It sounds crazy. And so he starts davening mincha marav. A few months later, he says, I go to a shiur 5:30 in the morning, I stay for minyan, and then I daven mincha marav by myself. This is so silly, I might as well go back to shul again for mincha marav. And that's how Daniel went from doing nothing to going to a 5:30 a.m. shiur, to staying for shacharis every single day for a minyan, to going back to shul every single night for mincha marav. And it all started with realizing that he wanted to change, or really, maybe in his case, we could say that he needed to change. Because he couldn't come back year after year after year and say, okay, this is 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 75 years of living the same exact life, year after year after year. And he realized that he wanted to change, that he needed to change, that he wanted to connect more to God because he knew deep down that he had experienced it in the past, and he knew that that was the way to live a fulfilling life and a meaningful life, not only for him, but for his wife and for his children. And he knew that he needed to and wanted to start learning Torah again. And he was successful because of a plan. He made it a priority to go to the early daf, which turned into staying for minyan, which turned into a love of Torah learning. which resulted in a deepening of his emunah and literally now living a life on spiritual fire. When we talk about the Rambam, Maimonides, and his formulation of tshuva, an indispensable part of his formulation of tshuva is Kabbalah ala Asid. Yes, we have to do tshuva, we have to feel bad about the past, but as I always say, forget about the past for a second. You can't do that with other people. You can't just harm anybody and say, you know what, just forget about the past. But we literally, every single one of us, you don't have to wait till Rosh Hashanah. You can walk out of here right now and go home, or even in Shul, and daven Ma'ariv. You may not have daven Ma'ariv for the last 20 years. You could open up a siddur right now, and in English, if you want, you could daven Ma'ariv in 5 to 7 to 10 minutes. And an indispensable part of the Rambam's formulation of tshuva is Kabbalah al Asid. You have to have a plan to change and a pledge to keep that plan. And this year, when people ask you in another week and a half, how was your Rosh Hashanah? Instead of saying it was good, it was bad, the Chazan, he was okay, the rabbi's speech was amazing, before you answer that question, think for a second and then tell them, I'm really not sure right now. I'll let you know in 6 months after I've had a chance to implement my plan to change. May this year be the year that we were able to change for the better in our relationship with others, in our relationship with Hashem, in our relationship with ourselves. And in the merit of doing so, may this year bring only bracha and shalom for us, our families, and all Jews throughout the world. Thank you again.
So I really feel the principle of kol hamosif gorea, that adding anything now might take away. There's so much to process. So I'll share just a few words. First, before doing that, I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but I do want to thank dear friend Joyce Lambert for sponsoring this, marking the Shloshim of Elisheva Rachel, Bas Yecheskel Gershon, Yeshua Shula, who always inspired others with her creativity, and you always inspire us with your thoughtfulness and generosity. May all the learning and the action plans that are in place be as chus for the neshama. So first of all, I was thinking in my bathroom. So right now, currently, I'm on Greg McEwen's Essentialism. If you haven't read his book, Essentialism, it's not exactly Tony Roberts, but Essentialism, as the word, says that in life, sometimes you have to just peel it back to the essentials. That we get so famished with all these details, today especially more than ever. There's so much coming at us that life seems so confusing that you got to just parse it away and say, you know what, maybe there's just a few essential items that I have to pay attention to. And this evening, I think we had the opportunity to hear some of those very specific ideas. There's something that's been a lot on my mind, I think all of ours mind. You know, I think the One Toronto, in terms of the sponsorship of what we're doing it for, I think the idea of coming together, in the past years, it was really just a nice opportunity to see people and hear other people speak. I think that in many ways, this year, it's the theme of the year of Jews coming together. Meaning, as I told our communities, I'm sure all of you have heard and thought about in your own ways, you know, on October 6th, the Jewish people were in big trouble. We don't even remember that anymore. We were in massive trouble. Jews were fighting against Jews like a way we hadn't seen since the destruction of the temple, perhaps. If you would have asked Rafi Lipner what was going to happen on October 7th, I would have said perhaps maybe I'd wake up to a civil war of the Jewish people, where it was Jew versus Jew in a way that we'd never seen before, because that's where we were leading. And on October 8th, I don't think we've ever seen a Jewish people more united and committed and caring about every single person, regardless of where they come from, their background, how little, how much, how big, how tall, everything changed in an instant. And in many ways, I think that idea is very deep inside of what my thoughts are going into this year. And I'd like to just share with you, I think, some of that value. You know, I had the opportunity of teaching some individuals downtown. I don't really get out of the bubble on Lawrence Street. I go as far as maybe, you know, Shepherd Finch, as far as like, you know, sorry, not even like past Eglinton, so I didn't even know like where the shul is, even though we learn on the phone. I'm sure it's somewhere past there. And Baruch Hashem, to be perfectly, and I don't go on that bridge on Avenue Road. I don't know if that's still happening over there. So Lamaisa, at the end of the day, life is pretty good for the Jewish people. Within our own little, shall we call it Jewish ghetto of Bathurst Street. But I had this opportunity to go downtown to teach up on some 50th floor overlooking the city at this company. And as I'm waiting at the elevator shaft, I start looking around. I'm noticeably Jewish. No, not because of the nose. It's this thing, right? And all of a sudden I feel like, whoa. Like I think people are looking at me. The one that had that kafiyah thing definitely was looking at me. And everybody else, I just felt all eyes were on the Jew. And I felt alone. And for the first time, I understood what it was like for probably the majority of people that don't live within the confines of a tight center of Jewish life, what it's like to be out there. And it reminded me of a very famous medrash. The medrash speaks about when was it that Moshe Rabbeinu was tapped for greatness. And God said, I want you to be the man. So the Midrash tells us that Moshe was a shepherd, as were so many of our greats. Many reasons for that. And Moshe was a shepherd. He was shepherding his sheep. And sure enough, one of them runs away. And he chases after the little shepsela. And when he gets there, he realizes the sheep is tired. It's hungry. He has rachmanis on the sheep. That he wasn't doing a good enough job feeding it. He takes the sheep. It has no energy. Throws it on his shoulder. And starts walking back to the rest of the chevra. As he's walking back, all of a sudden the voice comes out. God's like, Moses. He's like, who is that? It's God. It's like, God, come on, I got a sheep on my shoulder. This like horrible timing. He says, you're my man. I want you. You're going to lead the Jewish people. He says, I don't know what you're talking about. And basically unpacks the fact that to be a leader, you got to care about the individual, not just about the entire mass of people. You got to care about each individual matters. And it's a beautiful story, and I'm sure it's in leadership books. True leaders don't just care about the important people, the masses, they care about each and every individual. But the question is asked on that, saying, if you have 1,000 sheep, and your main job with sheep in the desert, or wherever you do your shepherding thing, right, is to make sure that what doesn't happen to your sheep. Ever read The Big Bad Wolf? Right? So wolves like to snack on sheep. That's what they snack on. Right? Unless they have self-control, like people spoke about, right? Some eat sheep, some don't eat sheep. He controlled it. Most of them don't. They eat sheep. So now let's just do the mathematics here. You have 1,000 sheep you're in charge of. There's 999, the chevra hanging out over here, and one of them runs away. Right? Moshe's a solo shepherd. He starts chasing after the sheep. So he's going here, right? And I know Rabbi Karfunkel's a big sports fan. So if you have everybody over there, all your protection on, and you're running this way, and now you're all of a sudden open to the elements, what's happening over there to those guys? Right? You're chasing the one sheep, right? Looking after the one guy, but everyone's over there. Right? They're all vulnerable. So it seemed like it wasn't such a smart move after all, perhaps. Sometimes, what can you do? So the answer's given, and I felt it down there. The answer's given that if you have a whole pack of sheep together, 999 that are all together and united, they're going to be okay no matter what. It's the one that's sort of not with everyone else, that's out on their own, that they're vulnerable because they're by themselves. And I feel that so much of what this entire time period has been like has been one to realize that there's so many individuals who feel this sense of just needing people. Just today I was in touch with the Clementine King. That's what I call him. No one else calls him that. But when we went down to go on one of the missions to Israel to visit a guy who had a farm, he happens to be married to the sister of the Bieber mother. And he's doing his thing over there. Just check in with him with a phone call every once in a while, a WhatsApp. How you doing? It's weird. I get a little kissy emoji from the guy who's the Clementine King down in the middle of somewhere 2 feet from Gaza. But he says you don't know how much it means just to be reached out to, because sometimes you feel like you're all on your own. We know that eventually what's going to happen, we know this for sure. This will all end. We know it because that's the nature of Jewish history. Jewish history is, yeah, that's my phone, I think. Yeah. You can get that if you want. I'm not really expecting anything. We know that this will end because every single time the Jewish people have gone through things, it always ends. But we know that there are certain things that we've taken out from this time period which should never end. And that idea of belonging to a community, including people in the community, bringing people together to be a part of community. And that doesn't mean, that's why I love this evening, it doesn't mean what shul do you belong to. It means one Toronto, one Jewish community, that we're all in that together. There shouldn't be one Yid we pass by and don't say hello or good Shabbos to. There shouldn't be one individual who's in need of help that we don't sit there and try to do whatever we can to help them. That's just not the way it should be, and we know it so viscerally now that we have to always remember that. Now, Rabbi Karfunkel had also mentioned about the idea of sparks that go out. And this morning as we were learning, there was something in the Mishnah Berurah talks about the nitzotz, a spark that goes out, ein bo mamish. It doesn't have anything. There's nothing to a spark. It's got to be connected to something bigger. So they tell a story of a person who used to come out to Shul. And he used to always be there, and then over time, as I'm sure we've all seen happen, people sometimes just drift. We don't even expect it. It happens slowly, but very quickly at the same time, if that's possible. And the rabbi notices after a while that the person's just not there. So he goes over one day in the middle of the winter, and he knocks on the door. The person lets him in, rabbi. Doesn't even say anything. He sits down. The fire is sitting there. It's a raging fire in the fireplace. And he's just sitting. He's waiting for the rabbi to say something. The rabbi goes to the fireplace, and he takes out one of the coals from the fireplace. And he just takes it out of the fire. And he just puts it down, the cement outside of the fire. They start looking at this little coal that was raging beforehand. And slowly it starts to get a little dimmer, a little dimmer. And then 5-10 minutes later, it's completely out. It's just black coal. He looks at the individual, looks at the coal, gets up, and walks out. And sure enough, the next week, guess who shows up? Sometimes we don't realize how much we need community ourselves as well. In many ways, it's our lifeline to continue to keep that fire going. We think we can all do it on our own, but ein, right? Lo tov lios adam levado. We weren't created as individuals to be alone. That doesn't just mean within marriage, it means a context of community. That we all go cold over time. We all lose that inspiration. We all lose that clarity, that vision, that focus. And it's not just about the rabbi getting up and saying something. It's the collective inspiration and power of the individuals. Each time someone in my shul does something that's part of their growth, it inspires the whole community. Each time a person feels a sense of weakness and they walk in, they feel rejuvenated by being amongst people. Because we're natured to be a part of a tzibur, of a community as well. I'll just end with this bracha to all of us. It's one of my favorite tefillos, that of Birchas HaChodesh. We're not going to say Birchas HaChodesh on Rosh Hashanah. We have other tefillos that are there. But I love the whole tefillah. I'm not usually a hog for davening, but I always in the shul say, I get to daven this. I was very upset last week, last Rosh Chodesh, last Shabbos Mevorachim, because there was a bar mitzvah and they davened it. I was very upset. It took a lot of restraint not to say you can't do that. So I'll do it today a little bit. There's a tefillah after we ask for all the hiratzons of the things that we want in life, v'chaim shel shalom, v'chaim shel tova, v'chaim shel bracha, parnasa. Then there's another paragraph that says, Misha asa nisim la'avosenu, he who has done miracles for our forefathers, v'gol asa me'avdus l'cherus, and has redeemed them from the slavery, what we'd call today captivity, right, to cherus, that they should be free. Hu yigalo sanim b'karov, just like he freed them, he should free us now, v'kabesin d'cheinu me'arba kanfos Yisrael, kanfos ha'aretz, and bring us from all the four corners. But then it ends with the following words, Chaverim kol Yisrael, v'noimar amen. And I find that so beautiful, that it could just say, Hashem, you did these miracles for us, you saved us. Will you save us again with the miracles? But we don't do that before we say, Chaverim kol Yisrael. You know why? Because you're Jewish people, we're all one chevra. We're all together. We're waiting for you. We know that the reason for the Churban Beis HaMikdash, one of the most reasons that are well given, is Sinas Chinam. We know the rebuilding of that is Avas Chinam. Klal Yisrael has never felt greater Avas Chinam than we have this past year. We should be Zoche, merit to take it over the finish line together. Show HaKadosh Baruch Hu this year, Chaverim Kol Yisrael, that we're all the best of friends, no matter what type of Yid we are. And Amir Tashem, we should be Zoche, Misha Asanisim Lavoseinu V'Gasamav L'Cheirus, Hu Yigal Asanu B'Karov. Chevra, wishing everyone a good gebench year. Amir Tashem, may we should be Zoche and merit to see those miracles. And may this gathering be part of the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides that the time has come. Chevra.